The grand lobby of Ellington Couture, one of the most luxurious buildings in the heart of New York, glittered under the glow of crystal chandeliers. The hurried footsteps of employees in tailored suits blended with the rhythmic click of high heels on marble floors, creating a symphony of ambition and success. Everyone seemed too absorbed in their own world to notice the small girl standing quietly in the corner, Lila Hartman. 10 years old, her long brown hair tied hastily with a frayed blue ribbon, clutched a wrinkled envelope tightly in both hands. Her face was thin and pale, yet her deep blue eyes carried an uncanny resolve. Her little heart pounded wildly, but she forced herself to swallow the fear, whispering inwardly that she must not give up. "Excuse me, ma'am," Lila stammered, stepping toward the reception desk, where a woman in a black blazer with neatly pinned brown hair was busy typing. The woman looked up, startled by the sight of a child alone. "Are you lost, sweetheart? Where are your parents?" Lila shook her head and extended the envelope with trembling hands. I'm not lost. I came to find the boss here. I have to give him this letter. It's very important. My mom said I have to make sure he reads it today." The polite smile on the receptionist's face faltered. She glanced at the envelope, seeing the uneven yet unmistakable words, "To Mr. Marcus Ellington, personal and urgent." A flicker of hesitation crossed her eyes, because this was against company policy. "Listen, honey." She softened her voice. "Mr. Ellington is very busy. He doesn't take letters directly from outsiders. You can leave it here, and I'll make sure it gets delivered." Lila shook her head firmly, her voice shaky but unyielding. "No, I have to give it to him myself. My mom said this might be her last letter. I promised her. If I don't do it, I'll break my promise." Her words cast a heavy silence over the space. Only the chime of the elevator echoed faintly. The receptionist suddenly felt her throat tighten. She had never met a child who spoke with such fierce determination. At last, she picked up the intercom. "Mr. Ellington, there's a special case downstairs. A little girl insists on meeting you to deliver a letter by hand. It's marked urgent. She looks very determined. On the 40th floor, inside a glass-walled office overlooking the Manhattan skyline." Marcus Ellington sat at his walnut desk, skimming quarterly revenue reports, clad in a charcoal suit and black tie. His presence was as cold and sculpted as marble. Hearing the receptionist's words, Marcus frowned. A child. He almost refused immediately. But the emphasis in her tone of special case made him pause. "All right," he said curtly. "Send her up." But only 5 minutes. The glass elevator carried Lila upward. Her heart thudded faster with every floor, her small hands squeezing the envelope until the edges crumpled. When the door slid open, she was overwhelmed by a velvet-carpeted corridor, large oil paintings, and finally, a towering mahogany door engraved with the name, Marcus Ellington, CEO. She drew a deep breath and knocked 3 times. "Come in." The deep male voice was commanding, distant. Marcus lifted his eyes from the file, and his silver-gray gaze landed on the timid child stepping in. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to stop. He recognized those eyes, blue, clear, unshakably deep, the mirror of his own from long ago, and the way she held her chin high with stubborn pride, as if nothing in the world could move her. "Who are you? Who brought you here?" Marcus asked, his voice clipped, though his eyes lingered on the fragile face. "My name is Lila Hartman," she said softly but clearly. "I brought my mom's letter for you. She said it's the most important letter she's ever written, and it's only for you." She stepped forward, offering the envelope with both hands as though it were a treasure. Marcus accepted it. His fingers trembled faintly when he saw the handwritings landed. Gentle, achingly familiar. Isabel. He didn't open it yet. Instead, he looked at the child. "Why didn't your mother deliver it herself?" Lila pressed her lips together, lowering her head, her voice barely more than a whisper, as if afraid tears might fall. "Because my mom is very sick. She doesn't have the strength anymore. So I came instead." A cold shiver pierced through Marcus's immaculate suit. Suddenly, the walls of ice he had built over the years quaked. He set the letter on his desk, staring into those trembling but defiant eyes. The question slipped out, rough and raw from his chest. "Lila, how old are you?" "I'm 10, she answered, lifting her tiny hand to show all 10 fingers. "My birthday is in December." Marcus froze. December, exactly 10 years after the night he could never forget, the night he lost Isabel, swallowed by a truth someone else had forced upon him. And in that instant, he knew this letter was not just important. It could change everything. On the 40th floor, the midday light streamed through the towering glass walls, casting a pale golden haze across the thick carpet. Marcus Ellington sat behind his desk, the envelope resting silently in front of him. His fingers brushed the edge of the paper, then froze. His silver-gray eyes drifted somewhere far away. 10 years. 10 years he had tried to bury the name Isabel Hartman. 10 years of building icy walls to block out the memory of her gentle smile. The skilled hands that once sewed him his first shirt. And those amber eyes that had looked at him as though he were her entire world. He had convinced himself it was all lost the day he saw those photos, the betrayal. That had shattered him. A small sound pulled him back to the present. Lila sat in the chair opposite, her feet swinging nervously, her face tense. The girl was watching him, waiting for a verdict. You'll read it, won't you?" Lila asked, her voice trembling but resolute. Marcus drew in a long breath, then tore open the envelope. A faint scent rose from the paper lavender, achingly familiar. The thin sheet bore slanted, delicate handwriting, though the ink wavered slightly, as if written by a tired hand. "My dearest Marcus, if I had the strength, I would never have let our daughter carry this letter. But sometimes life leaves us only with final choices. Lila is our child. I know this will shake you, because 10 years ago you were told you could never have children. But look into her eyes, they are yours. I don't have much time left. End-stage heart disease. The doctors say surgery is my only chance, but I cannot afford it. I am not writing to beg for money. I am writing to beg you to acknowledge her. If I leave this world, Lila will have no one. I plead with you, if you cannot forgive me, then at least love her." Isabel. Marcus read every word, his spine tightening as though gripped by an iron hand. His fingers shook, the letter trembling with his ragged breaths. Each sentence dragged him back to that fateful night when another envelope arrived, photos of Isabel with a strange man. He had believed them without question, turned his back coldly, and let her vanish from his life. He folded the letter and sat motionless. In the vast office, only the ticking of the wall clock filled the silence. "Do you believe my mom?" Lila's blue eyes shimmered as she looked up at him. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he rose and walked to the window. New York buzzed below, people reduced to tiny specks of light across the map of ambition. For years, this had been his entire existence: power, detachment, an impenetrable fortress. And yet, in just 10 minutes, a 10-year-old girl and a letter had cracked it wide open. He turned back, his gaze locking on the child. "Lila, you're 10 years old, aren't you?" "Born in December?" "Yes." Lila nodded quickly. "December 15th. Mom said it snowed that night, the first snow of the season." Marcus froze. Exactly the last night he and Isabel had been together was 10 years ago. That March, every detail aligned with chilling precision. He bent slightly, his hand pressing on the letter. "I need to see your mother." Today, Lila's eyes lit up, then dimmed again with worry. Mom, she's very weak. But I know she'll be happy to see you. I can take you home. Questions surged in Marcus's mind. Why hadn't Isabel reached out sooner? Why had she let their daughter come alone to his company? And if he truly had a child, why had 10 years been stolen from him? He grabbed his coat and called out to his assistant. Cancel every meeting this afternoon. The assistant froze. But sir, you have the board meeting? Postpone it? This is more important. Lila's eyes widened. She had never seen anyone rearrange their world because of her. Her heart pounded, half fear, half hope. The hallway buzzed as Marcus strode past with a little girl beside him. At the reception desk, Margaret, who had first met Lila, sighed with relief. But from across the lobby, a woman in a scarlet dress stood watching Charlotte Vance, Marcus's glamorous girlfriend. Her brown eyes narrowed, sharp with suspicion. Who is that girl? And why is Marcus with her? Charlotte's grip on her purse tightened, jealousy rising like fire. For Marcus, every gaze around him had ceased to matter. Only one thing consumed him. He had to find Isabel and hear the truth from her own lips. The sleek black car sped down the avenue. In the back seat, Lila pressed her face to the window, clutching a small sketchbook as if it were her only comfort. Marcus, watching through the rearview mirror, noticed again how strikingly she resembled him, the thoughtful eyes, the proud, straight posture. Lila, his voice softened. Unlike his usual tone, have you ever met me before? Did your mother ever talk about me? Lila hesitated, then gave a small nod. She didn't tell me much. Only that Dad is a very busy, very important man. And she told me if one day I ever met you, I should remember she never hated you. Marcus's throat tightened. He turned his gaze back to the rushing traffic, hiding the storm within him. When the car stopped before a worn-down apartment building in Brooklyn, Lila hopped out quickly. This is our home. Marcus followed. The walls were chipped, the hallways narrow. Yet the door of apartment to be bore a little trellis of flowers, a few wilting pots that had still been lovingly cared for. An unexpected warmth stirred in his chest. Lila looked up at him, her anxious smile carrying both fear and hope. Are you ready? Mom is waiting. Marcus drew in a deep breath. For the first time in years, he realized he was nervous. The pale blue door creaked open, releasing a faint mix of herbal medicine and freshly laundered fabric into the hallway. Marcus Ellington stood frozen for a moment, his hand unconsciously tightening around the folded envelope in his coat pocket. He, an all-powerful CEO, accustomed to making million-dollar decisions in seconds, now found his heart racing like a 20-year-old boy standing at the threshold of a modest Brooklyn apartment. Isabel Hartman appeared. She wore an oversized, light blue sweater. Her once thick, flowing hair was now loosely tied back, thinner, lacking its former shine. Her skin was pale, her amber eyes shadowed with sleepless circles. And yet, when those eyes met Marcus's, a flicker of light returned, strange, fragile, a blend of surprise and trembling hope. Marcus Isabel's voice was barely a breath, but unmistakably real. Marcus could not speak. He had imagined this moment 100 times, sometimes with anger, sometimes with regret, but now everything dissolved into a single suffocating ache. Mom? Lila cried, rushing into Isabel's arms before turning back proudly. I gave him your letter. He came here with me. Isabel hugged her daughter tightly, her gaze never leaving Marcus. Tears shimmered at the corners of her eyes, but she forced a smile. You did so well, Lila. The little apartment was small, but warm. The sofa was worn, the wooden table chipped at one corner, yet everything was tidy. The walls were covered in crayon drawings, Lila's art. A family of 3 holding hands under a bright blue sky. Marcus's eyes swept the room, his chest tightening. He turned back to Isabel, his voice hoarse. The letter, is it true? Are you really this sick? Isabel set Lila down on the sofa and nodded softly. The doctors said my heart has been weak for years. Lately, it's worsened quickly. Surgery is the only option, but she paused, glancing at her frail hands. I can't afford it. Marcus took a step forward, then stopped. For years, he had kept distance from everyone. But in that moment, he wanted nothing more than to grasp those hands and promise her he would handle everything. Yet he held back, the bitterness of 10 years ago crashing down on him. Isabel, he said slowly, 10 years ago, why? Why did you vanish without a word? Why let me believe you betrayed me? Isabel's eyes widened, stunned and hurt. Betrayed you. Marcus, I never don't. His voice rose sharply, then immediately softened. Afraid of frightening Lila, I received pictures, calls, proof you had someone else. I believed it. Isabel collapsed onto a chair, as if her strength had been drained. Tears streamed freely. Marcus, I don't know who sent you those things. But I swear, I never had anyone but you. When I found out I was pregnant, I tried everything to reach you. My letters were returned. Your number changed. Your office refused to let me in. All I had left was silence. A dizzying shock swept through Marcus. If those proofs had been fabricated, if someone had orchestrated it all, what had he lost over the past 10 years? A small voice broke the heavy air. Are you two fighting? Lila stood in the middle of the room, clutching her sketchbook, her blue eyes wide with confusion. Marcus and Isabel both froze. One-word parents cut through the ice in Marcus's heart. He stepped forward, kneeling down to meet his daughter's gaze. Lila, he whispered, his voice trembling. Who do you think I am? The girl bit her lip, then murmured, I think you're my dad. My eyes look like yours, and so do my hands. Mom said Dad was someone special, and I believe that. Marcus's throat tightened painfully. He reached out, hesitating, until Lila placed her tiny hand into his. That trembling warmth broke him. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in his life, he felt the full weight of the sacred word. Father, Isabel pressed a hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. Tears spilled freely, a torrent of both anguish and release. That evening, Marcus stayed in the apartment. He sat in the armchair, watching Lila scribble in her sketchbook. She quickly drew a new picture, a dark-haired man standing beside her and her mother, all three holding hands. This is my family, Lila said brightly. Now it's complete. Marcus accepted the drawing, his heart jolting. He looked over at Isabel, who had slumped against a pillow, exhausted. Her face was pale. Her breathing shallow, her illness clearly far worse than she admitted. He rose and draped his coat gently over her shoulders. Isabel, you need to be in the hospital. I'll cover the costs. We can't wait any longer. Isabel opened her eyes, ready to protest, but stopped at the unwavering look in Marcus's eyes. She gave only the faintest nod, as if finally laying down a burden she had carried for far too long in that moment. Marcus knew the path forward wasn't only about uncovering the truth of the past. He had to fight with everything he had to protect this family. Isabel, Lila, his family. That night, as Marcus left the modest Brooklyn apartment, the spring wind whipped against his face. Yet, strangely, his heart felt warm. The image lingered in his mind. Isabel leaning wearily against the sofa, her eyes still glowing when they rested on her daughter, and Lila asleep with a sweet smile. He had never seen a picture of family life so simple, so beautiful. Marcus stepped into the sleek, black Bentley waiting under the awning. The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror and asked cautiously, Sir, straight back to the penthouse. Marcus hesitated for a moment. The luxurious Upper East Side apartment, 10 times larger than Isabel's home, had never once felt like home. He inhaled slowly, giving a curt nod. Yes, But even his own voice carried the weight of reluctance, as though he himself dreaded returning to that cold, empty space. Meanwhile, back in the small apartment, Isabel gently closed Lila's bedroom door. The child had fallen fast asleep, curled around the stuffed bear Marcus had bought on the way. Isabel stood still, her hand pressed to her chest where her heart ached. Today's reunion had awakened hope, but with it came fear. 10 years ago, a few photos and whispers had been enough to destroy everything. Would fate be just as cruel this time? The answer came sooner than she imagined. The next morning, Marcus returned to Ellington Couture headquarters. He hadn't even reached his office when he spotted Charlotte Vance waiting in the lobby. Tall and imposing in a striking red dress that sharpened the cold edge of her beauty. "Marcus," she purred. Her voice sugar-coated, but carrying hidden blades. "Where were you last night? I waited all evening, called you, but you never answered." Marcus's brow tightened. Charlotte had always tried to control his schedule, but never had he found it so suffocating. He replied shortly, "I was busy." Charlotte narrowed her eyes, as if piecing it together. Busy or with her? Marcus halted, his gaze turning razor-sharp. Her Isabel Hartman. Charlotte spat out the name like poison, lips curling. "Marcus, don't tell me you actually fell for her pitiful act." A woman reappearing after 10 years, bringing along a child, claiming it's yours. It's laughable. Enough. Marcus's tone was steel. "I won't hear anyone insult Isabel, the girl." "The girl?" Charlotte let out a dry laugh. "You're calling her your daughter? Marcus, have you forgotten? You're infertile. I was the one by your side when the doctors gave you that verdict. And now, just because of one letter, one child's eyes, you're ready to throw all that away." Marcus stayed silent, but the question he'd asked himself the night before returned. What if that medical verdict was wrong? What if the truth had been twisted? Charlotte stepped closer, her voice dropping into a syrupy whisper. "Marcus, you're the CEO of an empire. You cannot afford to become a laughingstock over some poor seamstress and a child pretending to be yours." He turned toward the elevator, his voice cold. "You don't understand, Charlotte. Stay out of this." Charlotte stood frozen, her nails digging into her purse. A dangerous glint flashed in her eyes. She could not allow Isabel to return nor a child to unravel everything. The following day, Marcus accompanied Isabel to the hospital for the first round of heart surgery tests. Dr. Oliver Grant, his longtime friend from university, was overseeing her case. Oliver's eyes flickered with surprise. Marcus Ellington, the man once known for his icy detachment, now standing beside a frail woman and a lively little girl. The Marcus Ellington I knew never skipped a board meeting to bring someone to the hospital, Oliver teased. Though his smile softened warmly toward Isabel and Lila, Marcus only gave a faint smile, his gaze gentle as he watched his daughter dart along the hallway. "Maybe you never knew all of me?" Oliver chuckled, then grew serious. "I'll do everything I can. But the surgery will be expensive. You should be prepared." "Money isn't the issue," Marcus replied firmly. "What matters is saving Isabel." Isabel lowered her gaze, her eyes shining red. She had never expected anything from him yet. Here he was, unwavering, resolute, as if he had never left. That evening, as Marcus left the hospital, an anonymous email arrived in his private inbox. The subject line, "Don't trust her." Inside was a string of photos from 10 years ago, the same ones he had once seen. Isabel walking beside a strange man, the blurry shadows staged to look like infidelity. This time, the images came with a single line: "The child is not yours. Be careful before you're deceived again." Marcus sat frozen in the car, eyes locked on the screen, his hand tightening into a fist. The old wound, barely beginning to heal, had been slashed open and salted anew. He leaned back in the seat, closing his eyes. In his mind, two images collided. Lila's clear, unwavering eyes as she called him Dad, and the dark, damning photos from the past. The conflict tore through him, sharp as glass. Elsewhere, in a lavish bar, Charlotte sipped red wine, her lips curling when she saw the read notification flash on her phone. The plan was in motion. "Isabel," she whispered, her eyes gleaming with malice. "This time, I won't let you come back." In the days that followed, tension hung heavy over Ellington Couture. Marcus still appeared in meetings, still signed million-dollar contracts, but his eyes often drifted elsewhere. His closest assistant noticed the change. The boss, once icy and unshakable, now sometimes sat in silence, staring at his phone as if waiting for something. What he awaited was the DNA results. Marcus had ordered the test immediately. Part of him wanted to crush the doubts once and for all, while another part longed desperately for a definitive answer. He needed to know, was Lila truly his daughter, or was this all an elaborate charade orchestrated by Isabel? The day the results came, a fine drizzle blanketed the city. In the clinic, the atmosphere was suffocating. Marcus sat rigidly in his chair, hands clasped tightly. Isabel sat opposite him, Lila wedged between them, her eyes sparkling with hope, though she didn't fully grasp the gravity of the moment. The doctor carefully opened the envelope, his voice steady. "The results show probability of a father-child relationship 0%. In that instant, the world collapsed. Isabel's face went pale, her hands trembling. No, that's impossible. There must be some mistake." Marcus sat frozen, as still as stone, the vein at his temple throbbing. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to Isabel, his silver-gray eyes turning cold once more. "Isabel, did you lie to me?" "No." Isabel shot up from her chair, her voice breaking. "Marcus, I swear on everything, Lila is your daughter. I have never betrayed you. This results something's wrong." Lila's frightened eyes darted between them. She clutched her mother's hand. "Mom, I am his daughter, right? You didn't lie to me." Isabel pulled her into her arms, tears streaming down her face. "No, Lila, I have never lied to you. You are the most precious thing I have on. You are your father's child." Marcus watched, his insides in turmoil. Part of him wanted to believe Isabel, to believe in the eyes so identical to his own staring back at him. But the past, the photographs, the anonymous emails, and now the DNA result all hammered against him like relentless blows. He rose, his voice low and strained. "I need time." And then he left, leaving Isabel collapsed in her chair and Lila sobbing in her mother's arms. Rumors spread like wildfire. Somehow, word of the DNA results leaked. Tabloids began splashing headlines. CEO Marcus Ellington in love child scandal. DNA. Test denies paternity. In his office, Marcus read the words, blood rushing to his head. He knew who was behind it. Charlotte. No one else had both the motive and the media influence to have his private matters exposed so quickly. That evening, in the small apartment, Isabel sat before her sewing machine, her hands too unsteady to thread a needle. Every ounce of strength seemed drained from her. The door creaked open. Lila stepped out, clutching her workbook. "Mom, at school, the kids asked if I'm adopted." Her voice was tiny. Choked. Isabel pulled her close at once. "No, Lila, you are my daughter, and you are your father's daughter too. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." Lila looked up, tears brimming in her blue eyes. "But why did he leave? Why doesn't he believe me?" Isabel's throat tightened. She knew Marcus was torn apart, but how could she explain that to a child? At last, she whispered, "Sometimes even adults are afraid, Lila. But the truth never changes. You must believe me. The girl nodded faintly, though uncertainty still clouded her gaze. Meanwhile, in his lavish penthouse, Marcus stood before the massive glass window, staring down at the city lights below. Cars streamed like veins of light, but all he saw were Lila's clear eyes and Isabel's tears. "My daughter," he whispered. Why did his heart believe so fiercely, while the paper in his hand denied it? His phone buzzed. A message from Charlotte. "See? I warned you. Don't let your empire and reputation be destroyed by a cheap trick." Marcus slammed the phone onto the table. Rage flared, rage not only at Isabel, but at himself, at the past, at a truth still hidden in shadows. The next day, Marcus sought out Dr. Oliver Grant. His old friend looked at him with concern, then sighed. "Marcus, have you considered the possibility that the results could have been tampered with? I've heard of cases not exactly clean." Marcus stiffened. "You mean someone falsified them?" Oliver nodded gravely. "If someone had reason to sabotage you, it wouldn't be difficult. But you'd need proof." Charlotte's image flashed through Marcus's mind. His fist clenched. "Oliver," his voice was steely, "I want another test. In a fully independent lab where no one can interfere. I need the truth." Oliver gave a slow nod. "All right, I'll arrange it. But Marcus, you need to be prepared. This time, there will be no turning back." Marcus let out a bitter, almost broken laugh. "Truth has never scared me. What I fear is that I've already lost my family for 10 years. That week, New York was no longer peaceful for Isabel and Lila. Ever since the DNA results had leaked, whispers followed them everywhere. Neighbors lingered in hallways, gossiping in hushed tones. At school, children cornered Lila with cruel questions. "Is it true your dad doesn't want you? Are you adopted?" One afternoon, Lila came home with red, swollen eyes, her school books spilling from her backpack. Isabel rushed to hold her, her heart tearing apart as her daughter sobbed. "They said I don't have a dad. They laughed at me." "Mom?" Isabel's throat closed with grief, but before she could speak, a knock came at the door. Marcus Ellington stood there. He wore a white shirt, tie loosened, looking weary, yet with a fierce light in his eyes. In his hands was a paper bag from a bookstore. He stepped inside and set it on the table. Stacks of brand-new picture books and children's stories. "For her," Marcus said softly. "No one has the right to laugh at her for something I still haven't clarified." Lila's eyes widened, blue and shimmering. "Dad," she blurted out, then quickly covered her mouth, afraid he would be angry. But Marcus only sat down beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You can call me that whenever you want." Isabel watched, her heart trembling. For years she had raised her daughter alone. Now, seeing Marcus shelter her, she felt both moved and terrified. If this moment was fleeting, Lila's heartbreak would be unbearable when it ended. In the days that followed, Marcus intervened quietly. He contacted Lila's principal, demanding she be shielded from gossip. He arranged discreet security outside Isabel's apartment to keep paparazzi away. Rumors still exploded across tabloids, but strangely, the stories vanished from the web within hours. Isabel knew only Marcus had the power to make that happen. One evening, as Isabel cleared the dinner table, she caught sight of Marcus in her tiny kitchen, awkwardly slicing bread. He was a man unaccustomed to such tasks. Yet his serious face as he handled the rusty knife made her chuckle softly. "What are you doing?" Isabel asked, her voice light. Marcus looked up, faintly embarrassed, a rare sight. "I thought the girl needed a normal dinner. Not a five-star restaurant, not some extravagant banquet. Just toasted bread, soup, and laughter." Isabel froze. In the warm glow of the kitchen light, he was no longer the icy CEO on magazine covers, but the man who had once loved her with a heart unguarded. 10 years ago. But the storm had not passed. One night, Isabel's phone rang with a call from an unknown number. A woman's sharp voice hissed down the line. "You think you can crawl back into Marcus's life? Don't even dream of it. I won't let a sickly seamstress like you ruin him." Isabel trembled, her knuckles white as she gripped the phone. She knew instantly it was Charlotte. Marcus entered at that moment, catching her shaken expression. He snatched the phone, but the line had already gone dead. Isabel met his gaze, her voice low. "I don't want to drag you into more trouble." If Charlotte is determined, she won't stop. Marcus squeezed her shoulder firmly. "Don't worry. I lost you once because of lies. I won't let it happen again." In his eyes, Isabel saw a blazing determination. And for the first time in 10 years, she allowed herself just a little to believe he truly wanted to protect them both. That weekend, Marcus took Isabel and Lila to the outskirts of the city. The three of them sat on the grass in a park, spring winds carrying the scent of wildflowers. Lila ran freely, picking blossoms and sketching in her notebook. Beside her, Isabel watched Marcus lying back with his hands behind his head, eyes half closed as though savoring peace. She whispered, "You've changed so much." Marcus cracked one eye open, smiling faintly. "Or maybe I've just found the part of myself I lost." "The part you took with you 10 years ago." Isabel's heart quivered. She turned away quickly, hiding the tear that slipped down her cheek, but peace lasted only until that evening. When Marcus dropped the two of them home, a black envelope lay waiting at their door. Isabel's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was the same photograph from 10 years ago, her and a strange man. The very images that had once destroyed their love. This time, scrawled across the picture in jagged letters, "Marcus will never be yours." "Stop deluding yourself." Isabel gripped the photo, her chest tightening painfully. She knew Charlotte would not stop until she had destroyed this fragile family down in the hallway's dim light. Marcus had been watching. His eyes turned cold as steel. He stepped forward, laying a hand on Isabel's shoulder. "Isabel, it's time we find out who's behind all of this." That black envelope was like a spark to dry kindling. Marcus Ellington did not sleep that night. He sat alone in his penthouse office, the yellow lamplight carving hard shadows across his stone-like face. The photograph of Isabel embracing a strange man from 10 years ago still lay on his desk. But this time, he did not feel rage. He smelled deceit. That night, he pulled out every old file. He called Oliver Grant, his closest friend and personal physician. "Oliver, I need you. Not as my doctor, but as the only friend I still trust." Oliver was silent for a long moment before answering. "I'll come. But Marcus, you must be ready to face the truth. No matter how cruel it is." The next morning, Marcus walked straight into Bartek Tower. The skyscraper gleamed under the first sunlight, its glass blindingly bright. He entered not as the cold CEO, but as a warrior preparing for battle. Charlotte Vance was already waiting in his office, clad in a crimson dress that clung to her frame, her lips painted in the same sharp hue. Her smile brimmed with confidence, as though she believed Marcus could never escape her grasp. "Marcus," Charlotte began smoothly, "I hear you've been seeing Isabel Hartman again. Are you sure that's wise? That woman destroyed you once already." Marcus sat behind his desk, dropping a thick folder onto the surface. His voice was low but cutting. "Interesting, isn't it, Charlotte? Every time Isabel and I had a chance to mend things, some new evidence appeared to tear us apart. And funny enough, the only person who ever benefited from those collapses was you." Charlotte chuckled lightly, lifting a glass of wine from the sideboard and swirling it lazily. "And what exactly are you implying?" "Not implying." Stating plainly, Marcus tapped the old photographs with a fingertip. 8 years ago, these pictures Isabel with a strange manner arrived anonymously. Then the calls, the so-called witnesses. And now, the same images resurface, accompanied by handwriting I know all too well. He pulled another envelope from the folder and tossed it onto the desk. Inside was carbon copy stationery with threats written in sharp, familiar strokes. For a flicker of a second, Charlotte's face betrayed alarm, but she quickly masked it with composure. "You suspect me. Marcus, I've been by your side for years. I'm the one who knows you, supports you, helped build Bartek with you. Isabel? She's nothing but a poor seamstress." Her voice rose, venom seeping through her polished mask. Marcus leaned forward, bracing his hands on the desk, his gaze like a blade. "I was blind enough to believe that once. Not anymore." Oliver rechecked the DNA test. The first result was tampered with, and only one person had access to my records. Someone who knew how to manipulate the process. Charlotte's hand trembled, her wineglass quivering, the liquid sloshing dangerously. "You called Oliver's office. Pretended to be my assistant, didn't you?" Marcus pressed, eyes narrowing. "You even collaborated with Henry Lowell, exploiting Isabel's failed marriage as cover. All of it just to tear us apart." Charlotte's face blanched, but she recovered quickly, laughing bitterly. "And what if I did? Don't you see, Marcus? I did it all because I love you." Marcus froze for a moment. The confession felt like an old wound reopening, but instantly his fists clenched. "Love doesn't destroy. What you've done is obsession selfishness dressed up as devotion." Charlotte slammed the glass down on the table, wine splattering across polished wood. "And you think Isabel is better? She sent her daughter to you with a letter. She clings to you only to survive her illness. Are you so sure you're not just a temporary lifeline?" Marcus surged to his feet, his voice booming through the office. "Enough. I let you deceive me for too long. But not this time. This time, I choose to believe the truth. Isabel never lied to me. It was you who staged it all. And I swear, Charlotte, you will pay for this." Their eyes locked, fury sparking between them. Charlotte swallowed hard, forcing a smile. But her clenched fists betrayed her trembling. That evening, Marcus went to Isabel's apartment. When she opened the door, her amber eyes were guarded, uncertainty clouding her face. Since the black envelope, she hadn't known how much she could trust him. "Marcus," she whispered. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he held out the thick folder, every page meticulously marked. "Isabel, I know who's behind it all." "It's Charlotte." Isabel's hands shook as she took it. Flipping through page after page, recordings of calls to Oliver's office. Postmarks traced to Charlotte's address, confidential financial records exposed. "Oh God," Isabel murmured, gripping the paper tightly. "So all of our pain, all these 10 years, it was her." Marcus stepped closer, his voice firm. "I was blind, and I lost you and Lila. I swear I won't let it happen again." The little apartment fell silent. From the bedroom, Lila peeked out, hair tousled, eyes heavy with sleep. "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" Marcus knelt, smiling gently. "Nothing, sweetheart. I promise no one will ever hurt you or your mother again." Lila rushed into his arms, small and trusting. Isabel stood watching, tears welling in her eyes dawn in that moment. She knew Marcus was no longer the man of the past, manipulated by lies. He was becoming something more, someone she and Lila could finally lean on. But Charlotte would not surrender so easily. The very next day, a fresh wave of slander hit the press. Isabel Hartman, the deceptive woman with multiple husbands exploiting CEO Marcus Ellington to climb higher. Paparazzi shots of Isabel leaving the hospital, pale and fragile, were plastered under mocking headlines. Marcus slammed the paper onto the conference table, fury burning through him. "Fine. If Charlotte wants war, then we'll drag everything into the light." His gaze swept the room, sharp and unyielding. Prepare a press conference. I'll tell the truth myself. Rumors spread like wildfire. Within 2 days, photos of Isabel leaving the hospital had splashed across every tabloid, accompanied by cruel headlines. The deceptive woman clinging to CEO Ellington. A romance built on exploitation. At school, the taunts toward Lila grew harsher. She came home with swollen eyes, clutching her tattered teddy bear. "I don't want to go back to school, Mom," Lila sobbed. "They said I'm a fraud, that Dad will never claim me." Isabel wrapped her daughter tightly, her heart breaking. She had endured gossip for 10 years, but her daughter had not. Lila was only 10. She deserved innocence, not storms. At that moment, a firm knock rattled the door. Marcus Ellington stood there, holding a thick folder. His face was stern, yet softened when he saw mother and child clinging to each other. "Enough," he said. "We won't hide anymore. Tomorrow, I'll hold a press conference. And Isabel, I need you beside me." Isabel froze. "Are you sure?" Standing before the public, he'll risk everything. Marcus stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "I've already lost everything once. The only regret I carry is not protecting you and our daughter. This time, I'll do it right." The next morning, Bartek Tower overflowed with reporters. Cameras, microphones, and blinding flashes filled the air. News of Marcus Ellington's urgent press conference had ignited the city. In the preparation room, Isabel sat quietly, her hands cold as ice. Lila sat beside her, gripping her hand tightly, her blue eyes wide with nervous anticipation. Marcus entered, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Yet his face lacked its usual icy detachment. He stopped before Isabel, extending his hand. "Come with me," he said softly. Isabel lifted her eyes to that hand. For years, she had dreamed of holding it again, yet feared it just as much. Now, under the harsh light of judgment, he offered it like a vow. Trembling, she placed her hand in his. Marcus squeezed firmly. "Don't be afraid." The main hall was packed to capacity. When Marcus appeared, holding Isabel's hand with Lila just behind, murmurs erupted like waves. Hundreds of lenses turned toward them, flashes exploding. Marcus stepped onto the podium. The microphone buzzed faintly as he paused, sweeping his gaze over the crowd. Then he spoke. "For the past week, the media has spread false rumors. Today, I stand here to tell the truth." He pulled Isabel beside him. The hall roared with noise. Isabel trembled, but Marcus held her hand tightly. "This is Isabel Hartman," he continued, his voice steady. "The woman I loved deeply 10 years ago. And this," he crouched down, gently pulling Lila forward, "is Lila Hartman, Isabel's daughter, and my daughter too." Gasps rippled across the room. Cameras flashed furiously. Isabel froze. Lila's eyes widened, but Marcus stood tall, unwavering. "Someone has tried to destroy our family with forged photos, malicious rumors, even tampered medical results. I want to make this clear. Everything you've seen was a lie." He raised the folder, revealing the independent DNA test. "This result proves I am Lila's biological father, and I am proud of it." Applause began softly, then grew louder, echoing through the hall. Reporters pressed forward, voices overlapping. "Mr. Ellington, what about your relationship with Charlotte Vance? Are you worried shareholders will react to this revelation?" Marcus met their gaze without flinching. "Charlotte Vance no longer has any connection to me, nor any position in this company. As for shareholders, ill bear the consequences. But I believe a company led by truth will always be stronger than one built on lies." He turned to Isabel. "I lost her once. I won't let it happen again. From today forward, Isabel and Lila no longer stand alone. They have me." Isabel's breath caught, tears spilling down her cheeks. Lila squeezed her father's hand and whispered, "Dad, you're so brave." The press conference ended in chaos, but the tide of public opinion shifted. Online, thousands of messages of support flooded in. Marcus Ellington, the CEO, who dared to claim his child, who dared to protect love, a modern fairy tale in the heart of New York. That evening, back in the small apartment, Isabel sank into her chair, overwhelmed. "Marcus, you just put your whole career on the line to protect us." Marcus loosened his tie, sitting across from her. "I didn't put it on the line. I chose what matters most. A career can be rebuilt. But love, family lose it once, and it's gone forever." Lila squeezed between them, throwing her arms around both. "I don't need castles or fancy cars. I just need you here, with Mom and me." Marcus pulled them both into his arms. In that moment, he realized the flashes, the headlines, the noise of the world, they were nothing. What truly mattered was this: his family, found at last, but somewhere in the shadows. Charlotte Vance watched the press conference on a glowing screen, eyes blazing. The wineglass in her hand cracked, then shattered. "You think you've won, Marcus?" she whispered, lips curling into a venomous smile. "The game has only just begun." News of the explosive press conference spread everywhere. Television replayed the scene of Marcus holding Isabel's hand and Lila's, publicly naming them his family. That image melted thousands of hearts, but it also enraged others. In a luxurious East Manhattan apartment, Charlotte Vance hurled the remote control to the floor. Glass shattered. She sank into a leather chair, eyes burning like hot coals. "You think a single press conference can erase the 10 years I stood by your side, Marcus?" A thick folder lay ready on the table. Charlotte smiled coldly. "If you choose Isabel, then I'll make the whole world know who Isabel really is." 2 days later, the storm returned. Major outlets ran headlines in unison. Was Isabel Hartman involved in the Lowell Group scandal? Is the woman CEO Marcus Ellington protects hiding a dark past? Accompanying the stories were old photos from 10 years ago. Isabel stepping out of Lowell Group headquarters beside Henry Lowell, her expression tense, while Henry looped an arm around her shoulder with a sly grin. Isabel went numb, her chest constricted. What she had tried to bury was dragged into the light, distorted and weaponized. Marcus arrived immediately. He found Isabel collapsed on the floor, hands pressed to her head. Newspapers scattered around her. Marcus knelt beside her, voice soft. She looked up, tears streaming. "See, I told you my past only brings trouble. Their right eye don't deserve to stand beside you." Marcus hugged her trembling shoulders. "Listen to me. They're twisting the truth. Tell me everything, every detail." Breathless, Isabel opened the door to 10 years ago. After Marcus believed the falsified evidence and left her, she fell apart. Henry Lowell appeared, a polished businessman promising support. "He gave me a job at Lowell Group." But then, Isabel choked on the words. "Henry treated me like a tool. He pressured me to sign papers, put accounts in my name for shady transfers. I was foolish. Desperate, I did as he asked. When the scandal broke, Henry denied everything, and I took the blame. The marriage was annulled. I escaped him, but the stain remained." Marcus listened, his grip tightening. His anger was not aimed at Isabel, but at those who had used her. "You suffered alone all those years, Isabel. I should have been there to protect you." Isabel trembled. "If one day the shareholders turn against you, if your company collapses because of me," Marcus cut her off, voice steely. "Never call yourself a burden. If I must choose between this empire and you and Lila, I choose you." Without hesitation, his words rang like a vow. Isabel sobbed into his arms as years of shame began to thaw. Charlotte did not relent. That night, she appeared at a glittering finance gala, dressed in a shimmering gown, her smile dazzling as she raised a glass and proclaimed, Marcus Ellington is jeopardizing Bartek for a woman tied to scandal. If the shareholders don't act, the company will fall into the wrong hands. Shareholders wavered. The market trembled. Bartek stock plunged over the next 2 days. Messages and calls flooded Marcus. Cut ties with Isabel or lose the company. Marcus faced tremendous pressure. Instead of retreating, he convened the board in the broad meeting room. Before the cold stares of dozens of shareholders, Marcus stood tall and declared firmly, yes, Isabel Hartman was entangled in the Lowell Group, but you forget who the real culprit was. Henry Lowell, the man now in prison for fraud. Isabel was a victim. I will not let a victim be punished forever for a past she did not choose. Mr. Parker, a longtime shareholder, frowned. But the public doesn't see that. They only see you defending a woman with scandal attached to her name. Marcus met him with blazing eyes. If this company can exist only by trampling truth and abandoning the innocent, then I'd rather not have it. I can build it anew, but I will never build on injustice. Silence fell. A few shareholders bowed their heads. Swayed by the rare resolve Marcus showed, that evening Marcus returned to Isabel's apartment. Lila barreled into his arms. "Daddy, are you sad?" "I heard grown-ups saying you might lose the company." Marcus lifted her, planting a gentle kiss on her golden hair. "Daddy hasn't lost anything, sweetheart. I've just found my family. That's the only thing that matters." Isabel stood in the doorway, watching father and daughter embrace. Her heart ached and yet brightened with hope. She whispered, "Marcus, you're standing against the whole world for us." Marcus set Lila down and took Isabel's hand. "I'm not fighting the world. I'm fighting lies. And I'm not alone because I have you and I have Lila." The warm lamplight fell on the three of them, forming a simple, tender portrait of the family they'd longed for across 10 years, far away. Charlotte sat in a dark room, eyes fixed on the screen streaming the shareholders' meeting. She ground her teeth and whispered, "He chose her over everything. Fine, if Marcus dares defy me. I'll play my final card." From a desk drawer, she pulled a small USB drive. A vicious smile spread across her face. "One secret about Isabel, and I'll bury it all." New York shook once more. Just as the markets began to steady, Charlotte Vance struck her last blow. A spliced recording in which Isabel's voice could be heard speaking with Henry Lowell about money and secrets. Online, thousands of comments rained down. Accusing Isabel of exploiting Marcus, Isabel sat frozen before the screen, her face pale. "Marcus, if they believe this, I'll drag you down with me." Marcus placed his hand firmly on her shoulder, his gaze unwavering. "Isabel, I've lived too long in the shadows of lies. This time, we face it head-on. I won't let you stand alone again." Lila clung to her mother, her blue eyes shimmering with worry. "Daddy, are people lying about Mom again?" Marcus knelt to meet his daughter's gaze. "Yes, but this time we'll prove the truth. Do you remember what Mom always told you? Do the right thing even when you're afraid." Lila nodded, her tiny hands clasping both her parents with resolve. The next day, Marcus called an emergency press conference at Bartek Tower. The media swarmed, flashes blinding the stage. Isabel sat in the front row, heart pounding, with Lila gripping her hand tightly. Marcus stepped up to the podium. His face no longer bore the cold mask of a COET, was set with the ovarial. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice rang out. "Once again, hidden hands have tried to destroy Isabel Hartman's honor, and my family's. But this time we have proof." He nodded. And Oliver Grant stepped forward. The screen lit up with audio waveforms. Oliver explained how sections of the tape had been cut, spliced, and layered. "This recording is a forgery, created with editing software. We traced the IP address. It belongs to Charlotte Vance's private office. The hall erupted. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing wildly. Marcus's voice cut through the storm. Charlotte Vance has interfered, repeatedly fabricated photos, tampered DNA tests, slandered Isabel, all to tear us apart. Today, I submit the evidence to the police. Justice will speak. Thunderous applause broke out. Isabel burst into tears, while Lila whispered with delight, "Mom, Dad won." That afternoon, police raided Charlotte's apartment. She still wore a glittering gown, but her face drained of color as the cuffs snapped shut. Reporters crowded in, cameras exploding in light. The once confident smile twisted into desperation. "Marcus," she screamed as she was led away. "You'll regret this. I loved you with everything I had." Marcus only watched in silence, not with anger, but with emptiness. For love never thrives in deceit and destruction. A week later, Bartek held a final press briefing. It was confirmed Charlotte Vance had been arrested for forgery, defamation, and medical tampering. Shareholders applauded when Marcus declared, "We will rebuild Bartek on transparency. And I will do it with the family I am proud to call my own." From the front row, Isabel sat with Lila's small hand in hers, her amber eyes shining with pride as she looked at Marcus. Spring arrived, painting New York in rare, clear skies. In a small park near Isabel's apartment, Marcus laid out a picnic blanket. Lila skipped across the grass, collecting dandelions, her laughter ringing like bells. Isabel settled beside Marcus, sunlight catching her hair. "I still can't believe we made it through," she whispered. Marcus smiled, eyes warm. "The only thing I know for certain is this: we'll never face anything alone again." From his pocket, he drew a small velvet box. Isabel gasped, her hand flying to her lips. "Isabel Hartman," Marcus said, his voice catching. "I lost you once for 10 years. I don't want to waste another second. Will you let me make it right? Will you marry me and let us raise Lila together in a true home?" Isabel broke into tears, her smile radiant through them. "Marcus, yes." Lila ran up, arms full of dandelions. "Mom, Dad, I've brought flowers for your wedding too." Marcus pulled Isabel and Lila into his arms. 3 hearts, 1 steady rhythm. 2 months later, a small ceremony unfolded in the rooftop garden of Bartek Tower, overlooking the city skyline. Friends, loyal shareholders, and Oliver gathered. Isabel wore a simple white dress, Marcus a navy suit. But the star was Lila, 10 years old, scattering white petals down the aisle as their flower girl. When Marcus and Isabel exchanged rings, Lila squealed, "We're finally a real family." Laughter mingled with applause. The stares upon them were no longer judgmental but blessings. That night, as fireworks lit the New York sky, Marcus lifted Lila onto his shoulders. Isabel stood by his side, her hand entwined with his. "Daddy," Lila whispered, "I think the most important things come in the smallest packages." Like the letter I gave you that day, Marcus hugged her tightly, his gaze drifting to Isabel, overflowing with love. "You're right. A single letter, but it changed everything." Isabel leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering, "From now on, no darkness can divide us." And in that moment, beneath fireworks and within the embrace of family, they knew that after 10 years of storms, they had finally found peace and a love that would endure forever. Perhaps what remains, after all, that storms is not just the triumph of truth, but a simple lesson: love and family can only endure when we dare to stand by each other, no matter the lies or the judging eyes around us. Marcus, Isabel, and Lila found each other again after 10 years apart. That is worth more than any empire or ambition. Thank you for listening. With Snail Story, if this tale touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. Your support is what inspires us to bring more healing and meaningful stories.